Beyond the crime scene, Part 1, The Silence After. The crime scene was already gone by the time the truth began to speak. Yellow tape had been peeled away, the chalk outline washed into nothing, and the street returned to its ordinary rhythm. Vendors calling, engines coughing, shoes scraping pavement. To everyone else, the night had ended. To Inspector Daniel Cade, it had only shifted shape. He stood across the road from the apartment building, hands buried in his coat pockets, eyes fixed on the third-floor window where the light still burned. No body remained. No sirens cried anymore. Yet something lingered, an absence that pressed harder than noise. Inside that apartment, a life had been interrupted at exactly 11:42 p.m. Officially, it was simple. A fall, a locked door, no signs of forced entry. The neighbors heard nothing unusual. The report would say accidental death, pending routine checks. But Daniel had learned long ago that crimes didn't end when evidence was collected. They leaked into routines, memories, and the quiet spaces people tried to ignore. He crossed the street and entered the building. The stairwell smelled faintly of disinfectant and old paint. Each step echoed, as if the walls were listening. On the third floor, Mrs. Ojo's door stood half open. She was the neighbor who had made the call. "You're still here," she said softly, surprised but not afraid. "Just making sure nothing was missed," Daniel replied. She nodded, though her eyes drifted toward the ceiling, toward the apartment above hers. "It was too quiet," she added. "That's what scared me." Quiet had a way of hiding things. Daniel stepped into the now empty apartment upstairs. Furniture sat neatly in place. A cup rested on the table, tea long gone cold. The window was closed. Everything looked finished, too finished. He knelt, not to examine blood or broken glass, but to listen. The truth, he knew, wasn't always at the scene. Sometimes it waited beyond it, inside motives, secrets, and the lives that continued after the tape came down. And somewhere in this quiet room, something unfinished was still breathing. To be. Beyond the crime scene, Part 2, What the Walls Remember. Morning light changed everything. When Inspector Daniel Cade returned, the apartment no longer felt suspended in time. Sunlight spilled across the floor, exposing dust, fingerprints smudged by ordinary living, and the faint scuff marks near the window that hadn't been there the night before, or at least hadn't been noticed. He crouched beside them now. They weren't signs of a struggle. No chaos, just movement, the kind someone makes when pacing, thinking, waiting. Daniel straightened as a knock sounded behind him. Sergeant Layla Mensa stood in the doorway, tablet tucked under her arm. "Building manager called," she said. "Victim's name is Samuel Okery, 36, data analyst. No criminal record. No enemies, according to everyone who knew him." "According to the living," Daniel replied. Layla glanced around. "For a place where a man died, it feels polite. That's what worries me." They moved through the apartment slowly. The walls were bare except for one framed photo, Samuel standing beside a woman at a beach, both smiling like the future was uncomplicated. The woman's face had been scratched, lightly, deliberately, just enough to ruin the image without shattering the glass. Layla noticed it too. Anger without destruction. "Or regret," Daniel said. In the kitchen, his phone buzzed. A message from the forensics unit. No defensive wounds. Time of death confirmed at 11:42 p.m. However, Daniel's jaw tightened. However never comes alone. Layla read over his shoulder. Footprints. Partial. Size doesn't match the victim. Silence returned, heavier this time. "Locked door," Layla said. "Closed window. No forced entry. Means whoever was here didn't need to break in," Daniel replied. "Or didn't need to leave the usual way." They stepped back into the living room. Outside, traffic flowed. Life moved on, unaware of how thin its certainty really was. Daniel looked once more at the scuffed floor near the window. "This wasn't an accident," he said quietly. "It was a decision." Layla met his eyes. "Whose?" Daniel exhaled. "That's the part beyond the scene. Somewhere, someone was waking up to a normal morning, carrying a secret that hadn't been washed away with the chalk. And the walls, if they could speak, would have told them everything. 2. Beyond the crime scene, Part 3, Echoes in Motion. The city kept moving, but the case stood still. Inspector Daniel Cade sat in his car outside a cafe 2 streets from the apartment. He hadn't come for coffee. He'd come to watch. Crimes, he believed, revealed themselves not in interrogation rooms but in habits, where people went when they thought no one was looking. Samuel Okery's phone records were thin. Too thin. Messages deleted. Calls unanswered. But one thing remained, a routine visit to this cafe every Thursday night at 11 p.m. Samuel had died at 11:42. Daniel watched the door. A woman stepped out, adjusting the strap of her bag. She paused, glanced up the street towards Samuel's apartment building, then quickly looked away. The motion was small, almost involuntary. That was enough. Inside the cafe, the air smelled of roasted beans and warm bread. Daniel approached the counter where the barista, a young man with tired eyes, wiped his hands on an apron. "You work late," Daniel said. "Always," the barista replied. "Do you remember Samuel Okery?" The name landed like a dropped cup. "Yeah," the barista said slowly. "He used to sit by the window. Same table. Same order. Did he meet anyone here last night?" The barista hesitated. "Not long, but long enough. A woman," he said. "Didn't come in with him. She arrived later. They didn't sit together." Daniel nodded. "But they talked." "Outside," the barista said. "Argued, I think. Couldn't hear what they said. But it wasn't friendly." Outside, Daniel's phone buzzed again. Forensics, this time with a quiet correction. Door lock shows signs of being engaged from the outside. Not forced. Skilled. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. The woman he'd seen leaving the cafe was gone now. But she had left something behind, an echo. Regret. Fear. Or resolve. Back in his car, Daniel stared at the apartment building in the distance. A locked door wasn't protection if you knew how to close it behind you. A fall wasn't an accident if someone made sure there was nowhere else to stand. The truth wasn't hiding at the crime scene. It was moving, breathing, ordering coffee and pretending the night had ended. And Daniel was no longer following evidence. He was following a person. Beyond the crime scene, Part 4, The Weight of a Name. Names have gravity. Inspector Daniel Cade stood beneath the flickering streetlight outside the cafe again, long after it had closed. Rain darkened the pavement, turning reflections into broken mirrors. He replayed the barista's hesitation in his mind. Fear had a sound. So did guilt. The woman's name came from a transit camera 2 blocks away. Amara Bello, 32, urban planner, no prior record, recently separated from her husband. Recently connected to Samuel Okery through work. Daniel read the file in his car as rain tapped softly on the roof. Emails between Samuel and Amara were professional on the surface. Project deadlines, revisions, late-night clarifications. But beneath the language lived something else. Tension. Familiarity. The kind that grows when 2 people know too much about each other. He visited Amara's office the next morning. She was calm when she saw his badge. Too calm. People who were innocent usually asked why. People who were afraid asked, "How much do you know?" "Inspector," she said, offering a seat. "I wondered when you'd come." Daniel didn't sit. "You met Samuel the night he died?" She inhaled, steadying herself. "Yes. Why didn't you mention that when officers spoke to you?" Her eyes flicked to the window. "Because I didn't touch him. That's not the same as not being involved." Silence stretched. The office hummed with distant printers and footsteps that had nothing to do with death. "We argued," Amara said finally. "He wanted to tell someone. About us. About what we'd done. And you didn't." "He was reckless," she replied, voice tightening. "He thought truth erased consequences." Daniel leaned closer. "Did you go to his apartment?" Her lips parted, closed, then nodded once. "I left before anything happened," she said. "He was alive when I walked out." "Did you lock the door?" Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. "Yes." Outside, Daniel watched her through the glass as he made a call to Sergeant Layla Mensa. "She didn't push him," Daniel said quietly, "but she sealed the room." Layla's voice came through sharp. "That still makes her part of the fall." Daniel ended the call and looked back at the office. Beyond the crime scene, guilt didn't always look like violence. Sometimes, it looked like a choice made too late to undo. Beyond the crime scene, Part 5, The Edge of Truth. The truth rarely arrives all at once. It comes in pieces, sharp, uneven, and heavy to hold. Inspector Daniel Cade stood again in Samuel Oakery's apartment, this time alone. Night had returned, as if insisting on finishing what it had started. The city lights outside the window blinked like distant witnesses, indifferent and endless. Amara Bello's confession circled his thoughts. I left him alive. True statements could still hide lethal consequences. Daniel walked to the window, the place everyone avoided naming. He noticed something new now that the room had been emptied of people. A faint scratch on the sill, metal against paint. Not a struggle mark. A brace. Someone had leaned there. Not to jump, but to listen. He called Layla. The fall doesn't begin at the window, Daniel said. It begins before it. Forensics just updated, Layla replied. Samuel had sedatives in his system. Low dose. Prescribed, but not to him. Daniel closed his eyes, so he didn't lose balance. He lost clarity. Amara hadn't pushed him. She hadn't planned to kill him. But she had argued, locked the door, and walked away knowing he was unstable, emotionally, chemically, dangerously so. And someone else had been there. The building manager appeared in the doorway, wringing his hands. Inspector, there's something I forgot to mention. Daniel turned slowly. People don't forget important things. They delay them. The man swallowed. A maintenance request. That night. From Samuel. He said someone was in his apartment who shouldn't be. Did you respond? I sent my night supervisor. He said the place was quiet. Door locked. No answer. Daniel felt the weight settle into place. 2 people had left Samuel alone that night. One out of fear. One out of convenience. Neither pushed him. But together, they created the fall. Daniel stepped back into the hallway, the door closing softly behind him. The case would move forward, charges, hearings, consequences measured in legal terms. Yet beyond the crime scene, something heavier remained. A man had stood at the edge of his life, calling out, and no one had answered. Beyond the crime scene, Part 6, What Justice Cannot Reach. The courtroom was silent in a way crime scenes never were. Inspector Daniel Cade sat in the back row, hands folded, listening as words tried to carry the weight of a man's last night. Negligence, complicity, failure to render aid. None of them sounded like 11:42 p.m. Amara Bello stood at the defense table, composed but hollow. The building manager's testimony followed, careful, apologetic, incomplete. The law moved with precision, assigning blame in fractions. Samuel Oakery's name echoed once, then became a file number. Outside, after the session adjourned, Daniel stepped into the afternoon heat. Reporters clustered near the steps, already shaping the story into something consumable. Inspector Cade, one called out, "Was it murder?" Daniel paused. "It was a death," he said. "The rest depends on what you think people owe each other." That night, Daniel visited Samuel's sister in Kiru. She lived in a smaller apartment across town, walls lined with family photos that hadn't yet learned how to grieve. "He called me," she said, holding her phone like a fragile thing. "That night, I missed it." Daniel didn't offer comfort. He offered truth. "You weren't the reason." She nodded, but grief doesn't obey logic. Before leaving, Daniel noticed a notebook on the table. Samuel's handwriting filled its pages. Ideas, half-finished plans, a life still reaching forward. On the last page, a single line was written, uneven and rushed. "I just need this night to end." Beyond the crime scene, Daniel understood justice didn't always arrive in handcuffs. Sometimes it arrived as knowledge, quiet, unresolved, permanent. He stepped back into the city, case officially closed, conscience wide open. Some crimes end with answers. Others end with a question that follows you home. End of Part 6, conclusion. Beyond the crime scene, Part 7, the lies that continue. The case was closed. The city didn't care. Weeks passed, and the street below Samuel Oakery's apartment learned how to forget. New tenants moved in. The window light no longer burned late into the night. Only Inspector Daniel Cade still measured time by what had happened at 11:42 p.m. He ran into Amara Bello at a grocery store on a quiet Sunday evening. She looked smaller now, as if the world had pressed in on her. No reporters, no lawyers, just 2 people standing between shells of ordinary choices. "I didn't mean for him to die," she said without greeting. Daniel nodded. Intent doesn't erase outcome. Her hands trembled as she placed items into her basket. I replay it every night. If I'd stayed, if I'd unlocked the door, if I'd answered my phone when he called again. Those are the ghosts that survive, Daniel said. She looked up at him. Does it ever stop? Daniel thought of Nkiru, of the notebook, of the quiet apartment now filled by strangers. No, he said, but it changes. It becomes part of how you walk. Across town, Nkiru began volunteering at a crisis helpline. She listened to strangers speak the words her brother never got to finish. Each call was a small refusal to let silence win. And Daniel, he returned to work, but with a new habit. He stayed longer at scenes that were already clean. He asked one more question. He knocked on one more door. Because beyond the crime scene wasn't just guilt and consequence. It was the echo of what people chose to do next. Some crimes don't end in prison. They end in lives quietly altered, moving forward, carrying the weight, learning how not to look away again. Beyond the crime scene, Part 8. When silence speaks back. Time has a way of testing what lessons remain. Months after Samuel Okery's death, Inspector Daniel Cade received a call that made his chest tighten, not because it was new, but because it was familiar. Another fall, another locked door, another quiet apartment. This time, Daniel arrived early. Too early for assumptions. The victim, a middle-aged man named Yusuf Adeyemi, lay alive but unconscious on the floor below his balcony. Neighbors said they heard shouting earlier. Someone had walked away before help arrived. Daniel looked up at the balcony rail, then at the door behind it. Locked, undamaged. He felt the echo immediately. At the hospital, Yusuf survived. When he woke, Daniel was there. I didn't want to die, Yusuf whispered. I just wanted him to listen. Who? Daniel asked. My brother, Yusuf said. He left, locked me in, said I was being dramatic. Daniel closed his notebook slowly. This time, the silence didn't win. The brother was charged, not with murder, but with unlawful confinement and reckless endangerment. It wasn't enough to rewrite the past, but it was enough to interrupt the pattern. That evening, Daniel stood outside the hospital, watching families come and go. Somewhere inside, Yusuf was breathing because someone had arrived in time. Beyond the crime scene, Daniel finally understood. The work wasn't only about solving deaths. It was about recognizing the moment before they happened. Silence could be evidence. Absence could be a warning. And sometimes, the difference between a tragedy and a second chance was one person who refused to walk awa. Beyond the crime scene, Part 9, Threads of the Unseen. Winter had a quiet way of masking the city's movements, and Daniel Cade felt it in his bones. Cases stacked up on his desk, but one thread refused to leave him: the memory of Samuel Okery's apartment, the locked door, and the silence that followed. He wasn't the only one still remembering. Amara Bello had moved to another city, tried to rebuild a life that still carried fragments of that night. She avoided late-night coffee shops, avoided the streets that might remind her of the weight of indecision. But the past, Daniel knew, always traveled faster than distance. A new case file arrived. A young woman, found in a similar apartment, door locked from the inside. No witnesses, no signs of forced entry. The coroner's preliminary report suggested accidental death, but Daniel's instincts screamed otherwise. He visited the building quietly alone. The hallways smelled of detergent and worn carpet. Small details jumped out. A scuff mark near the window latch, faint fingerprints on the railing. A journal left open on the table. He recognized the pattern. Isolation, small tensions, choices left unspoken, doors closed to delay confrontation. Beyond the crime scene, tragedy didn't always announce itself with screams. Sometimes it whispered in ordinary moments, ignored until it became irreversible. Daniel wrote his notes carefully, aware that patterns repeat when humans believe they are unseen. Beyond the chalk outlines and forensic reports lay the real work, understanding behaviors, anticipating moments where silence becomes deadly. As he left the building, snowflakes began to fall. Quiet, unnoticed, gentle. But Daniel saw them as he had seen everything beyond crime scenes, markers that life, fragile and fleeting, continued whether or not people paid attention. Some truths were not found in evidence. They were found in the spaces between actions, in the choices people made, and the consequences they refused to see. Daniel kept walking, knowing his work was never truly done. Beyond the crime scene, the living carried the echoes. Beyond the crime scene, Part 10, The Last Reflection. The city had a rhythm that refused to pause, even for tragedy. Traffic lights blinked, taxis honked, and late-night diners hummed with ordinary lives. Yet for Inspector Daniel Cade, some nights felt suspended, still echoing the moments he had witnessed beyond the crime scene. He returned to Samuel Okery's building one last time. The apartment had new tenants, fresh paint, and the faint scent of lavender. The window where Samuel had fallen remained, unassuming, a simple pane of glass that had seen too much. Daniel stood there, notebook in hand, thinking not about evidence or charges, but about the lives that continued after tragedy. He remembered Nkiru, Samuel's sister, volunteering late into the night to prevent others from facing silence. He remembered Amara, carrying her regret to a new city, and Yusuf Adeyemi, given a second chance because someone refused to look away. Beyond the crime scene, he realized the true work was never solving the act itself. It was in the ripple, how people responded, how they remembered, how they acted when no one was watching. He closed his notebook and exhaled. The air smelled faintly of winter smoke and streetlights. Life had resumed, fragile and imperfect. And yet, in that resumption lay hope, the kind that only comes when someone refuses to let tragedy define everything that follows. Daniel turned and walked away, knowing that beyond the crime scene, the story never really ended. It just moved forward, carried silently in choices, in vigilance, and in the quiet courage of those who noticed when others